This is J. Krishnamurti's third public talk at Rajghat, 1984.
May I talk first for about half an hour or so, and then will you be good enough to discuss or ask questions? Will that be all right? Yes? No? I don't know whether you're shaking your head as yes or no. So you talk seriously. Why have human beings throughout the world, after million years of long duration called evolution, are still so primitive? They are violent, envious, always ready to kill somebody, either in the name of God or peace or for their own country or king and so on. Why have human beings remained after this many millennia so extraordinarily barbarous, so very dependent on some outward help, asking help from another for a good leader politically or religiously and so on? I wonder if one realizes what human beings have become. And there is the genetic engineering, if you have heard about it, which is trying to transform human beings genetically, called engineering. And also the computer is taking over all the things, almost all the things that human beings can do, except perhaps look at the stars or see the light on the river or the beauty of sunlight on a leaf. Probably the computers can't do all that. And technologically, we have advanced extraordinarily, limitless. But psychologically, inwardly, we are still very primitive, barbarous, ready to hurt each other, so self-centered, self-concerned, and so on. Surely this must be a very serious question, if you're at all asking yourself this question. That is, why human beings, you and millions of people in the world, have remained so extraordinarily narrow-minded, petty, superstitious, and ready to hurt others in their own self-interest. These are all facts. And Is it possible for human beings, for you and for the speaker, for all of us as human beings, change radically? Not according to a pattern or a system or some philosophical concepts, but actually change radically. No longer be primitive, barbarous, petty, self-interest. That self-interest expresses itself in so many crude and very, very subtle ways, which most of us know if you are aware. And one asks, I'm asking for you, whether it is possible for human beings to change, or must they suffer much more, go through all kinds of anxieties, fears, depressions, loneliness, sorrow, forcing them circumstantially, economically, socially, forcing them to change. You understand my question? Is it inevitable that we must go through this terrible process of great anxiety, uncertainty, confusion, misery, occasional spurts of joy and pleasure, and then bear the burden of enormous sorrow? Is there not a way but to see all this, which is actually happening around us, to see all this and use our own energy, our own clarity, however little it is, to transform radically, psychologically ourselves? This is a question that has been tormenting most human beings, throughout serious people, not just those who merely accept and live traditionally and rather narrow-minded way of life. This has been a very, very serious question. From the most ancient times to the present day, man is asking this, seeing tremendous overpopulation, especially in this country, impending wars, national religious divisions, and man's, after these many, many millions of years, as scientists say, man as Homo sapiens has existed between 40 and 50,000 years. Is it possible for us to change? The word change implies time. I am this, but I will be that. That is generally the understanding of that word change. Transform, bring about an ending to something, like envy, or violence. This country has talked a great deal about non-violence. But probably this country too, because they've talked so much about it, they're very violent people. So, is ending violence, not becoming non-violent, which is non-existent, but ending violence, will that take time? Understand my question? I am violent, and will I gradually become or end all the complex content of violence? Violence is not merely physical violence. Violence is also a form of imitation, conformity, comparison. I won't go into all that, but you can think it out for yourself in more detail. Does ending take time? That's the question. You understand? Suppose I'm violent. Please look at yourselves and consider not merely listening to a lot of words, but actually seeing yourself as violent human beings. Can that violence end? Will that ending take time? You understand my question? I'm talking to him now. Will you take time to end violence? So you have to inquire, if you are serious, what is the nature of time? Not only by the clock on the wall, but also time as the past, the present, and the future. That's the whole movement of time. A series of incidents, a series of movements, a series of continuation of a particular quality. All that implies time. May I go on with it? Are you interested in this? If you are not, it's up to you. So time is a factor very important in our lives. Time to get up, go to the office, or to do work, to labor, and time to get up and time to go to sleep. We live by time. We began this talk at 9:30, and we'll end it at 10:30, or a little longer. So, time is an extraordinary factor in our life, not only biologically, physically, but also psychologically, inwardly. I am this, I will become that. I am not understood, but I will understand. One meditates in order to achieve enlightenment or some fanciful imaginative concept. So, time, not only chronologically, as the sunrise and the sunset, and the evening star, and the new moon, and also the concept, the feeling of psychological evolution. I am evolving, I am growing, I am understanding, I will one day achieve, fulfill. All that implies time, right? That is, the past, all the memories, all the experiences stored up in the brain as memory, which is the background of all of us, that time, the past, goes through the present, right? Modifies itself, goes through the present, and becomes the future. Right? Is this clear? Fairly simple, it's not too complicated. The past going through the present, modifying itself, slightly changing itself, and the future. So, all time is contained in the now. Right? Are we meeting on this point? That is, I am what I have been. I am all my memories, all my imagination, all my theories, all my fears. That's all the past. And that past is me. There is no me without the past. The me, the self, is bundle of memories. Right? Even though I may imagine I'm God or any, it's still memory. And that memory goes through the present, modifies itself, changes slightly, and becomes the future. That is, the future is now. Because I'm still, the past is still moving. You understand? So the future is now. Because I am today dull. If I don't change that dullness today, I'll be dull tomorrow. That's very simple. So tomorrow is now. I wonder if you understand this. Right, sir? Good. At least somebody understands. So, please look at it first, consider it, look at it. Forgetting all your theories about the past, and forgetting or putting aside that you are all your tradition, all your superstitions and so on, and look at the fact. The fact is what you are today is what you have been yesterday. All your anxieties, fears, pleasures, pain, loneliness, despair, anxiety, sorrow, all that is your past. You are that. And you, the past, which is the memory, goes through the present challenge, present incident, and so on. That past modifies itself and goes to the future. And unless you radically change now, the future tomorrow is what you are now. That's clear. I'm not going to go on about it. So, if one sees this very, very clearly, not merely verbally or merely intellectually or verbally, then you ask yourself, is it possible to change instantly? Because our brains are conditioned to the concept of gradualness. Right? Because you have planted a small tree and it will take time to grow, become the enormous tree of 100 years or 200 years, or 5,000 years. As there is a tree in Redwood in California, it's over 5,000 years old. But it began on a small scale. It took a long time to grow. We have that idea. We are conditioned, our brain is conditioned to gradualness. I will gradually become enlightened. That sounds so silly. I will gradually understand life. And also you say, I will gradually learn a new language. There, time is necessary. Because I don't know French or German or Russian or other language. There, you have to spend a great deal of time, perhaps 3 months or 4 months, or even less, to learn a language, or to become a first-class master carpenter. There you have to study the wood, the instrument, the grain, and so on, so on, so on. Now, the same concept, the same feeling is moved to the psychological world. I will gradually change. So our brains are conditioned to gradualness. Right? And if you accept that will gradually change, you see how false it is. Because we have lived on this earth for 1,000,000 years, and that's a tremendous long duration of time. And during that duration, we have hardly changed at all, except perhaps biologically. But psychologically, gradualness has not changed us. Yeah? Please, one has first to be logical, not superstitious, not accept some theory, but one has to be very sane, rational, logical first. And then you could discard logic and go much further. But one has to be logical first. And logic, reason, puts aside all theories, all hypotheses. So, man, having this concept of gradualness, both psychologically and physically, cannot understand or unwilling to see change must be instant and not in the future, right? Now, is that possible? Suppose I am violent. Violence means anger, jealousy, hate, trying to become what you are not. trying to escape from yourself. All those qualities, all those movements is a form of violence. Either you can see the fact, add to it more, or discard it, but human beings, both psychologically and physically, react quickly to an insult, to a flattery, and so on. So there is this violence. I am violent, suppose. And can I end that violence instantly and never let it come back again? You understand my question? You see the logic of what I've said? That is, time does not change us. To depend on time is a futile business. So I'm asking, I am violent, and to become non-violent is absolutely silly. This is what you all believe in. Look at it logically, clearly. If you are violent now, you have a concept or an ideal of non-violence. The ideal is in the future, right? It's somewhere up there. And you say to yourself, I'll gradually come to that point. But before you come to that point, you're always sowing the seeds of violence. Perhaps less and less and less, but it's still violence. I don't know if you understand all this. So, I'm asking myself, can this violence in me end completely, never to come back again? Are you asking this question? Will you ask that question of yourselves? Because time is not going to change you. So, what will end this violence instantly? What happens to your brain, when you see the logic of this? That time does not change you under any circumstances. That's logic. Because you've been on this earth for millions and millions of years, and you have not changed radically. So time has no value when you think about change. So when you realize time has no value at all in psychological revolution, then what takes place? Have you followed this? Are you all asleep? Or?
Is it that one wants to understand violence now when...
You have understood violence now. Violence is to hurt another, hate another, compete with another. Cruel words, cruel gesture. Conformity is a form of violence. Comparison. I am this, but I will be like you. All those are forms of violence. And you see that, right? You are aware the nature and the quality, the substance of violence. And when you are aware of that, right, in that awareness, what takes place? will you give attention? Will there be attention to this fact of violence? Attention, not analysis, not theoretical explanation or some hypothesis on which you base your reason, but actually see for yourself the nature of violence, the substance, the quality, the utter futility of violence. Then you give your whole, then there is whole attention to violence, right?
And by violence you mean this feeling of hatred, of conflict.
Beg pardon?
By violence that's happening now, you mean it's a feeling of hatred, of conflict, of animosity.
So conflict, animosity, all that those words indicate a form of violence. We're asking, can that violence end now? Completely cease to have any recognition or any feeling of violence. And that can only happen if there is tremendous attention to the quality and the substance, the nature of violence. Attention. Attention is like a flame. It burns away that which is in the light of attention, in the flame of attention. You understand? I'll show it. There's nothing mysterious about this. If I may ask, most respectfully, are you listening to what the speaker is saying? Listening. Not only with the hearing of the ear, but also behind the words. You are paying attention to what he is saying, are you? Or you listen for a couple of seconds and then your mind goes off somewhere else, your thought goes off somewhere else. Are you actually listening? Do you listen to anything? Do you listen to your wife and husband? To your friend? Or is it, say, yes, I know all about it. Do you ever listen to anybody? Pay complete attention to what another is saying. And when you pay such deep, affectionate, full of attention, then there is real communication. And the speaker is saying to you, or you listen to what he is saying, or you listen for a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds, and then you're thinking about something else. I wonder what you do when you listen to somebody. Listening implies great attention to what somebody else is saying, whether it's your wife or your husband or your children, or the twittering of a bird, or to the noise on the bridge as the train goes by. Listen to it. Not resist that terrible noise, but listen to it. So will you listen so acutely, with great attention to what the speaker is saying? Or you're translating what the speaker is saying to your own, with understanding in your own terms, or translating what he's saying, comparing it what some other book has said? All that indicates total inattention. So whereas you listen, in the same way, if you pay tremendous attention, attention is now, it's not in the future. So if you pay great attention, it's like a flame that burns away violence completely. Don't take the word of the speaker. Be skeptical. Question, ask, explore. Don't accept any authority in spiritual matters, in psychological matters. And then you see for yourself that attention is an extraordinary faculty of the brain so that which has been carried on through millennia years is wiped away in a second. And there are other factors in life, not only violence, fear, because most human beings are afraid. And fear breeds all kinds of fantasies, all kinds of theories. And God is one of our creations of man. God is projected by human thought. I know you won't accept it, but that doesn't matter. So you have to inquire very carefully, if you are willing, what is thinking? Why has man created so many marvelous things through thought, like surgery, medicine, computers, the extraordinary instruments that fly in the air, the aeroplane, the dynamo, the submarine, and the quick communication, all brought about through thought. And what is thinking? I don't know if you ever asked yourself that question. Are you? No, what's the matter? Have you ever inquired, if I may most respectfully ask you, have you ever thought, what is thinking? Not thinking about something. You may think about your wife, your husband, or your pet superstitious god. But what is thinking? From the most unsophisticated person who doesn't know how to read, write, or do any active, skillful things, he still thinks, right? And so does great scientists. They think. And you also think. So, what is that thinking? You understand my question? Huh? What to you is thinking? Because all your acts are based on thinking. All your knowledge either of the scriptures or of science or mathematics and so on, is all based on very careful, disciplined thinking. So what is thinking? Are you interested in all this?
Thinking, I think, is a result of perception.
What's that?
Result of perception. We visualize the outer world and then process it. This process is called thinking.
So perception and the process of perception is thinking.
The process that follows perception.
That follows perception, right?
Yes.
What do you mean by perception, sir?
Visualizing the items of the outer world is perception.
Visualizing
The items, objects, units of the outer world.
I don't quite follow, sir, what you mean. You are saying, if I understand it rightly, sir, perception, the seeing
Yes.
of that tree, and that perception of seeing that tree is called thinking.
No, it's not thinking.
Huh?
It's just in taking something which exists outside the actor, the man who perceives, and then processing it thereafter.
Sir, would you say thinking is based on memory?
Memory aids thinking.
What?
Memory aids thinking.
If you have no memory, would you think?
Huh?
If you had no memory at
That's
all,
not possible.
wait, sir. Oh, yes, it's possible. Amnesia.
If you become somebody,
Sir, I'm
must be
asking,
realistic.
sir, I am asking what is thinking.
I
Without,
have already told.
without memory, there is no thought. Without knowledge, there is no thought. Without experience, there is no thought. Whether that experience is through perception, whether that experience is through an accident in a car, without experience, there is no knowledge. And experience is limited. Of course. So knowledge is always limited. Right? Look, sir, this is not an argument between that gentleman and myself, but it is a fact that without experience there is no knowledge. Look at it. All the scientists within the last 200 years have added bit by bit by bit, right, to their knowledge. They never claim complete knowledge. That's impossible. Because their knowledge is based on experiment, on hypothesis, theories, which they try to prove. If it's not, they abandon it and go on adding. And so this additive process is called knowledge. And where that which is being added to is always limited. Right? Right, sir? The more I'm adding. So, knowledge, whether it is in the past, or the present, or the future, that knowledge is always limited.
Yes,
Right, sir?
Yes, sir, but this limited knowledge keeps coming up all the time. It doesn't
That's
rest.
memory. Right? So, thinking not about something, thinking. very act of thinking is the movement of the past as knowledge, memory, and thought. Right, sir? So, and all our activity is based on thought. Thinking about oneself is limited, right? Thinking that I must meditate every day is limited. I won't go into the whole question of meditation, this perhaps we'll do it tomorrow morning. So, thinking is always limited, narrow, small. Though it has done the most extraordinary things in the world, though it has done the most appalling things in the world, horrendous things, like killing other human beings in the name of God, in the name of whatever it is. And thought has created the idea of God. Sorry. Would you like to hear this? All the paraphernalia of a religious guru or religious Catholic hierarchy, look at their garments, their robes, all put together by thought. All their rituals, your rituals too, put together by thought. You may perform them every morning, your puja, but it's still very small affair. No? You will agree, some of you will agree and carry on. So, thought in relation between human beings is most destructive. Would you accept that? Huh?
He said, can you clarify that a bit, please?
So, between you and your friend, between you and your wife or husband or a child, or between you and the speaker, haven't you an image about the speaker? No? Haven't you an image about your wife? Your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or your husband or wife, haven't you got an image about her? No? If you had no image about the speaker, you wouldn't be here. Would you? So, in your relationship with another, each one creates an image about each other. And that putting together those images is the movement of thought. Right? So relationship is between the two images. No? Oh, for God's sake. And you call that relationship. Sexual exploitation of each other, using each other for their own comfort, for their own desires, for their own etc., etc., etc. And when there is an image about each other, is there love? Is love desire? Is love pleasure? So we have to go into these questions very carefully. And as the speaker has said over and over again, one must have this quality of doubt, not only about your own experiences, your own thoughts, your own so-called religious books, but also doubt your own experience, doubt what the speaker is saying, so that you are free, independent to think, look, observe, not just carry on automatically. So all this requires a great deal of attention to understand the very, very complex structure of the human being. Right. I've talked now, we'll ask questions.
I have an image about you because I've seen you before and I read books, and then, but does you have an image about your audience?
Don't you have an image about me, sir?
Because I've seen you before, so
Yes,
it creates
you have an image about me. And if I have an image about you, which I have naturally, what happens if I have an image about you and you have an image about me? What takes place? Nothing takes place. And that's our existence. You have an image about the politician, about the guru, about those who represent law, or your wife or your girlfriend, whatever it is, you have an image. And the relationship is called this communication between image to image. And that kind of image building is destructive to relationship. That's all.
So you were talking about the ending of violence, the ending of fear, and you talked about attention as being the great flame. In order, if you are attentive to these things, then violence or fear ends. What about the positive aspects of happiness or love? If you're everybody wants to be happy, I think.
Yes, sir. Do they?
I believe so. But
Is
if you talk about attention as being the flame, if you are attentive to that happiness, does that happiness not also disappear?
What do you call happiness?
The absence of fear or unhappiness.
Can there be happiness where there is a conflict? If I'm in conflict, as most human beings are, perpetually till they die in conflict, can there be happiness? Of course not, sir. That's so obvious. Now, can conflict end?
If you are paying attention.
No, wait a minute, sir. Before you smash it with that word attention, what is conflict? Why do human beings have conflict at all? About meditation, about God, about sex, about going to school. You follow? Everything has become a conflict, right? Why? Even meditation becomes a conflict. Now I'm asking, why do human beings live in conflict? Why have they accepted a conflict as a way of life? So one must examine surely, logically first, what brings about conflict in a human being? Is there opposing desires? That's one cause. wanting this and not wanting that. There is the so-called good and the bad, right? That is the dualistic principle in man, right? I think one thing today and the next day I abandon it and pick up another thing. So, there is always this conflict exists where we have an idea, a concept, a feeling of duality. Right, sir? Why is there duality? There is sun rising and sun setting, night and day, darkness and light, tall and short. That which is intelligent, that which is not intelligent, right? Now, those are, you're tall or I'm tall, you're short, you're a woman, I'm a man, right? All that is physically obvious and you can't change that. I can't suddenly become 10 feet. That is so. But inwardly, psychologically, why do you have duality at all? I say to myself, good and evil, right? What is the relationship between good and evil? Have you? I'm using the ordinary English language, which is simple words like the good and the bad. Not explore what's bad, what is good, but using those two terms, I'm asking, is good born out of the bad?
There are degrees, I suppose.
Huh?
They are degrees.
So, is good relative? Is the good relative?
It is, yes.
Huh? We don't, good is relative. That is, the good contains the bad also, relative. Is that so? Inquire, sir. Don't hold on to it. Inquire, is that so? Is it good? Is the good contain the bad? If it does, it's not the good. Right? If evil is part of goodness, then it's not good.
Well, can you say that good is an absence of evil?
Huh?
You cannot say then that good is an absence of evil?
Good is not only the absence, it's totally divorced from the evil. It's not relative. Now, just a minute. What is the fact? I am angry. Suppose I am angry. And I call that bad. Why do I call anger bad? It's a reaction that comes, right? But if I say, I must not be angry, then there's a conflict. But if I understand anger, go into look at it, understand it, the nature of anger, this form of self-protection, form of quick reaction, and so on. If I see that anger is the reason of anger, then the anger can end. But if I'm all the time fighting not to be angry, it's a conflict. So, the conflict exists only when I refuse to see what is and try to become something else. Clear, sir? So can we see only what is and not imagine what should be? I am ugly, that's so. Or I am a very dull person, not through comparison, you understand? You might be bright, you might be clever, beautiful and all the rest of it, and through comparison I say I am dull. But if I don't compare, am I dull? I am what I am. But we are trained, educated to compare. And therefore there's conflict. I see without comparison, I am what I am. From there I can move. But if I'm all the time comparing, I'm creating perpetual conflict. So it's possible to live a life without a single conflict. That requires attention, love, sanity. Any more questions, sir?
Part of this what is you're talking about is like these images we have of people. Part of this what's happening is the images we have of people, and it seems that images of each other are formed almost immediately. We come to a new place like Rajghat and we meet people and we start to have images of them, and often there's images of dislike. Now these images seem to be causing a great deal of conflict in oneself and in the world, as you said.
So yes, sir. So what is the world apart from you? Right? What is society apart from you? Is society something that is made by man? Society. You understand, English society, Indian, the social structure is put together by man through his greed, through his envy, through his ambition, through his corruption. And that society is me, you. Society is not something separate from you, is it? Of course not. Society is what you have made it. And unless you, who are part of society, you who have created society, unless you fundamentally, through attention, bring about psychological revolution, mere tinkering with the social structure and all that, will not change society. But that's a different question. Any more questions, sirs?
But is thought not something that comes naturally?
Beg your pardon?
Is thoughts, something we cannot stop like this? It's something that comes naturally. It's something that helps us also to understand. So how can we come to this absence of thoughts? What is the manner to reach this?
Are you asking? Thought is necessary, isn't it?
It is necessary.
In certain direction.
Yes.
And we live on thought. And our actions are based on thought. Therefore, our life, which means action, all that, is very, very limited. Now, it's not a question of ending thought. If you end thought, who is to end it? The one who ends is still part of thought, right? So, thought creates not only the image, but its own image. So, if you see the truth of that, you understand? That thought is always limited. Any action based on it is limited. Then you begin to inquire, not take there is or there is not. You begin to inquire, is there any other instrument which is not contaminated by thought? No, be careful, don't say greed. It's very careful. You understand my question? Is there any other instrument, or if you don't like the other word, instrument, is there any other dimension, any other energy which is not born of thought? That means you have to see, not verbally, but actually feel it in your blood, in your heart, that thought is always limited.
Is this not the process of meditation?
Wait, I haven't finished, ma'am, just a minute. Then you have that silent quality of brain which begins to probe. And that exploration reveals, if you have gone deeply far into it, that there is an energy that is not contaminated by thought. That energy is love. Don't, please, this is too complex, don't agree with all this. That energy is intelligence, and that intelligence acts, not thought.
Excuse me. You started to talk today about violence, and do you
What's
really
that?
expect
What?
in that there's so much of violence? Do you really think that it can be ever, reduced?
I can't
It's
hear
a
you.
part of human nature.
I can't hear you.
He's asking if violence can be reduced.
What?
If you really believe that violence can be reduced, that's what
He's saying, can violence be reduced? You're saying that there was a lot of violence in
Yes,
the world.
sir. Can violence be reduced? But it will still remain violence, won't it? Huh? Won't it be still violence? I can reduce violence if the politicians will allow it, and the people who are corrupt will allow it. I can live, one can live partially without violence, right? But that's not the end of violence. Look, they are trying to bring United Nations, all the nations be united, right? Which is impossible, isn't it? How can about 50 nationalities or more be united? They are keep themselves apart and say, let's all get united. It has no meaning. Anything else, sir?
When I am angry, I am not able to look at my anger, but when I am able to look at it, the anger is not there.
Are you different from anger? Are you different from your greed? Are you different from your envy and sorrow and fear? Or you are fear, you are sorrow. Right, sir? You're not different from the quality which you have. Right? I mean, don't agree to this, sir. This is...
At that moment, I am anger myself, and I am not able to look at it.
You are anger at that moment. You are envy at that moment. And so there's many, many moments you are. Right? You are your anger, you are your name, Your bank account, if unfortunately you have a bank account. You are your family. You are your society. You are your God. Because you invented all this. So there is no you separate from the anger. It's a fact, obviously. Your reactions are what you are. You may imagine, I'm all that, but I'm also great Atman and all that kind of stuff. But that's also part of thought.
When I give attention to this anger, if I'm angry, if I go into the substance of this anger, the nature of this anger, it's a sensation I can see.
If you go into the nature of anger and pay attention to anger, not try to escape from it, not to rationalize it, but be intensely attentive to that anger, anger disappears, of course. It's so simple, don't complicate it.
What is the difference between thinking and thought?
Huh?
What is the difference between thinking and thought?
There's no difference, both are thinking.
Sir, you explained violence is escaping from what we are not, what we are. We are trying to escape, that we explain as violence. And then you also said past.
Slowly, please, slowly.
You said escaping from what we are is a form of violence.
No, do you first of all see what you are? Or are you just talking about what you are?
Yes, that's what we don't see what we are.
Yeah. Why don't you see what we are?
That's why it's violence.
What?
That's what you said. It's violence is because we don't see what we are and we escape.
Yes, you escape. You escape. Don't escape. See what you are. When you comb your hair, you watch it in the mirror, don't you? And if the mirror is a good mirror, it reflects what you look like, exactly. Right? So can we look at ourselves as we are, as clearly, without any distortion, see exactly what we are?
If we don't see, if we escape from that, that is a form of violence.
What?
If we don't see, if we escape from that, that is a form of violence. Is that a form of violence?
I don't know, perhaps.
And if that is a form of violence, then we also said past, true, present is future. And looking back at our experiences, assassination, killing, hatred, jealousy, and all, if we try to escape...
Slowly, we're not going to a race.
The violence is like escaping from what we are. That's what we just...
No, wait a minute. Are you separate from violence? Are you different from violence?
We are associated with the violence.
What?
We are not different from violence.
So you are violence?
Definitely. Once association is there, we are...
What?
Association. She's saying.
Human being is associated with violence. Human being is not violence exactly, but is associated with violence time, circumstantial.
Sorry, I can't understand.
She's saying that the human being is not violence, but is associated with violence.
Who is it that is associated with violence? I don't know quite what you really are talking about, madam. Would you quite... Would somebody who has understood what she's saying tell me what it's about? Are you saying that violence is a form of association?
What she's saying is escape from what is violence according to you.
Yes, I would say yes.
Said that escaping from what is violence. Escaping from seeing yourself as you are is violence. That's what she said. But she did not complete it as to what the question was.
Yes,
What is
that's
the
what
question?
you, according
Oh,
to the
sorry.
according to your definition or you know
What?
Say the question so now.
Yes.
Would you come here?
Yes, that's
Just say what the question is.
What I exactly want to say is,
Sit down.
what I exactly want to
No,
say
you can
is,
tell me quiet. Say it loud.
you said violence is escaping.
What?
Violence is escaping from what we are.
Yes.
And
Now
then,
may I tell that to the audience?
yes, you define
Escaping from what we are is a form of violence, I've said.
and then past through future through present is future.
Yes.
That is all.
That's time.
Yes. Now, if we look back at
Slowly.
if we look back at our experiences, of assassination,
What?
experiences of killing, of hatred, jealousy,
Yes.
anger,
Yes.
and then we say, looking at these,
What?
looking at the experiences, the past experiences of anger, jealousy,
Yes.
killing.
Yes, slowly.
Yes. If we try to escape from these jealousy, anger, and killing, then we develop a future. Do we not? We develop.
No, I didn't say that. I said, madam, I said, we are the past. The past being our experiences, our intentions, our aspirations, our fears, our faith, our belief, all that's memory is the background. That's the past. Now, slowly, tell me next.
No, this is past. No, and you also said past through present is future.
I said the past, passing through the present or meeting the present, modifies itself. Modification, that is slightly, and moving on to the future. So the future is the past modified.
Modified past.
Future is the modified past, that's right. And that past is in the present. Right? That's what I have said. So the past is in the present, the future is in the present is the totality of time. Right? Right. Now what's the question?
My question is, now past.
Let her finish the question, sir.
No, my question is, past when modified becomes present, then are all
No. The past meeting the present then becomes modified.
Right.
Your Indian tradition, which is the past, meeting the present challenge of economics, social, all that, modifies that tradition and goes on into the future. So the future is still the present. Right? Now what's your question?
It's clarified now, sir. It's clarified. Because you've added meeting with the present. Past meeting with present becomes future.
Meeting the present, modifying itself becomes the future.
It's clarified.
Right. It's now 10 to 11. Shall we meet tomorrow? If you want to meet. If you don't want to meet, it's all right. You won't disappoint me. If you want to meet tomorrow, we shall meet here. May I get up, please?